Hello guys and welcome back, it's Totalxclipse here, and today I have something to admit. My old game save, there was a bug in the save file and it deleted everything, and it took me back to 4 hours working time, so I decided to start a new map, and as you can see I've got quite far with it actually. Now I've made everything look quite pretty down here, but the problem I have, he says going to something that's 100% efficient, is that some of the things are 50% efficient, some are 70%, and when you're building huge factories, you can really do with everything being 100% efficient to save both on your space and also the amount of resources that you're using up. But we're going to look at iron today. We're going to be working with impure iron ore node, and we're going to be creating a ladder, a flow chart almost, of how much iron ore is produced, and making that 100% efficient with the smelters and then 100% efficient with the constructors, so that we manage to produce iron plates at 100% effectiveness, iron rods at 100% effectiveness, and screws at 100% efficiency. And then we're going to, in a later video, move on to the assemblers so that we can add it all together eventually. So this is the test bed location that we have today. It's quite simple, it's just foundations to keep everything on the same level. We have one iron ore node over here, which is impure, I do believe. And then we've also got 2 storage units which we're going to be using later on to stop any bottlenecks which would thus cause us some efficiency problems. So the next thing that we need to do, now that we've got power flowing to it and we've got our foundation set, we're going to build our miner, followed by the number of smelters we need for it to be 100% efficient. What's important to note is that at the core clock, the smelters can produce 30 bars per minute, and an MK1 miner can produce, on an impure node, 30 ore per minute. And we know this because it says here. Obviously, if it goes up to normal iron deposit, I do believe it doubles to 60 per minute, and then a pure doubles that one to 120, I think. But with us producing 30 per minute iron ore and currently having 2 smelters, we know that they're not going to be 100% efficient because they each can produce 30 iron bars a minute. So for this one, we're actually going to give it 200% percent overclock, which will allow them to create 60 ore per minute. So next thing is to power it up just so that we can see, and then we'll check. So here we can see that the ore is now being sent to the smelters, and currently going at about 100%, and we can actually check this, and you can tell down here it says 84%. This is actually going up and will continue to do so until it reaches 100%. Sometimes it takes a while to actually reach 100% efficiency, but in a few seconds, we'll come back to it, it will say 100%, as this one does already. So we know that in order for an MK1 miner to be 100% efficient, you either need to use 1 smelter, or with 2 power shards, have 2 smelters. Now the next thing we're going to do is actually upgrade this to a Mark II miner. Now one thing that I did want to mention just before I get ahead, I am using the Mark III conveyor belt system. The first tier of the production, generally speaking, needs to be the one with the higher tier conveyors, because any bottlenecks you suffer here will affect the whole chain. Now with a Mark II miner, we see that it's doubled to 60 per minute in terms of the production of ore. Now one thing to note is that it's currently producing at 100% for 2 smelters. Now I've built another one. With one power shard you will be able to run an extra one at 100%, which is what we will do now. So as you can see, we've now got one power shard in the miner, followed by producing for 3 smelters, and these are going to be at 100% efficiency currently. We're actually going to put another power shard in here now, and that will increase it by a further smelter, and we're going to have to swap this out so that it splits to 2 further splitters, which then split into the 2 sets of 2 smelters. If you want it to be 100% efficient, you need to split it all equally. So as you can see here, we've now got the splitter followed by 2 other splitters that feed into the 4 smelters, and then we have 2 mergers, one's there, one's here, followed by a final merger, which is just going to then split them all over here. Now, just to show you that it works, we're going to power up this, which now has 2 power shards in. So, as you can see, this one's at 100%. This one will be 100% once it's synced up. It tends to take a while. Same with this one, and presumably this one's at 100% as well. Yeah. So, now that we know how many smelters we can connect up to one miner to make it 100% efficient, our next step is to remove the layer behind the smelters and start adding constructors. So, after a bit of work, we have now put 2 constructors to every splitter, which is on every single smelter, and that is why we have these gaps in between the smelters, just so that we can actually fit all of these in a line. Often if you're doing your own assembly line, you want to do the item that you need the most of, so in this case it's the constructors, first, so that you can build around that, because otherwise you find that you're having to add lots of conveyors to run around the actual items. So we're going to run it now, but it's important to note that we are going to be producing both iron plates and iron rods. Now these are things that we use for pretty much everything to start off with in the lower tiers of production in Satisfactory. So we're going to play around with that and see how we can make them efficient. So let's turn this on. So here we are. As we can see, it is all working fine. We've got no bottlenecks, which is the biggest thing that we want to avoid in Satisfactory to keep everything running. Really, the only time that you ever want to have a bottleneck is if your storage is full and everything's been backlogged because of that. At least then you have the items ready so that you can actually extend it. But anyway, we're going to see how efficient this is. So if we look at the iron plates here, we can tell that we're 50% efficient, and that is because we're producing 15 iron plates per minute. That's our maximum production, but we're actually only generating 15 per minute in terms of iron ingots, because this can only produce 30 in total and it's being split. So for this to be 100% efficient, we would need to delete this one here. With this producing 30 and being split into 2, we're not going to have a bottleneck or be stuck at around 50% with these. This is the same here. However, again, this is the iron plates, and we're only able to produce at 50% capacity at the moment. So we're going to have to delete this one as well. If we return to this one over here, we should now be producing iron plates at 100%. So we know that for every smelter, if you're producing iron plates, you only need 1 constructor. If you're creating rods, you're going to need 2, which is fantastic. Now the next thing we need to do is we're going to build a 3rd tier to this. So the next tier is going to be constructing screws. Now the important thing with screws, if we look at the rods here, we know that we're producing 15 rod per minute. The next thing is we need to look at the screws. Now we can see that the screws take the exact same time, 4 seconds to produce, and 1 bar or iron rod per production. So we know that we can add 1 constructor behind every iron rod constructor in order to produce screws at 100% efficiency, which we're going to try out now. As you can see, we have now extended this, but only with 2 more constructors. Now the reason for this is we are going to be creating rods, screws, and plates rather than just rods and plates. But this is only to show how you can have all 3 things efficiently or producing at 100% efficiency without any issues. But as it stands, we have an impure miner with 2 power shards connecting to 4 smelters, which are then connected depending on the product that they're creating. If it's iron plates, it's 1 constructor to each smelter. If it's iron rods, it's 2 constructors to every smelter. And if it's iron screws that we're producing, it's 1 constructor to each iron constructor. So, the moment of truth. Again, we know this is 100% or 99 at the moment. We knew that this was 100%, which it is, and it's feeding into this, which currently is at 100%, which is great news for us. This constructor is at 93%. I don't know why it had a little short then, but it seems to be okay at the moment. Again, these rods are producing at 100%. The screws are at 100, well, 99%, but we'll call it 100. And the same should be true with the iron plates. Now that is all we have time for in this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed it. If you found it interesting and helpful for your builds, please do drop a thumbs up. And if you want to see more, please subscribe, as we're going to have a load more videos. In the next one, we will actually be adding an assembler onto this one, at least 1, possibly a few, in order, I think we'll create reinforced frames to start off with, and then we'll just progress from there, as it's a kind of a ladder. From reinforced frames you then build reinforced plates, you create the manufactured frames, and it just goes on from there. The same with the rotor and then onto the motors, all of which we're already creating over there, but not at 100% efficiency. Anyway guys, until next time, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day. It is Easter Sunday over here, so do enjoy your Easter. Anyway guys, see you soon. Ciao for now.